Hi, it's Tabby, and this week I am taking an already made sculpture and I'm improving it. I don't like the wings on the mystical blue fairy that I made, so I'm making more practical wings that are better for handling because I like my jars to be usable. I hadn't perfected the method yet when I made this first wing, so I didn't film it because I was mostly experimenting. But to make the second wing just like this one, I placed it on top of a thin sheet of clay. I put it on like a 5 on my pasta maker, and then I trace and cut out this shape, and I will do one layer, and then I will do a layer of wire in between, and then another layer of clay. And for this I'm using cosclay because it stays flexible after baking, and the wire will keep it posable and help it keep its shape. I used a thicker gauge wire for this top part, and that's where it will also go into her back, and then a thinner gauge for these littler veins. And I use Bacon Bond or clay adhesive to attach all of these wires to the clay. After all the wire is in place, I add the second layer of cosclay, and I essentially make a wire sandwich and use Bacon Bond as the mayonnaise. Yum. After everything is lined up, I pinch the sides and start smoothing it down. I do intend for one side of the wing to be more rounded and the other to be more flat. I carve out the shape of another window. This one isn't going all the way through. I want it to have a little bit more structural integrity than that, and I also think it would just be nice to have this one as a painted window. I use various tools to smooth out the area that has been carved. Here I'm making the first bottom wing, and I'm tracing the old wing that I made out of just resin and wire, and just to get the general shape and wire placement. I do change things up a little bit because it is different materials that I'm using, and I want it to be better. And so I trace out the wire and basically measure it, and I use the same method of sandwiching the layers of cosclay and wire, and using Bacon Bond to glue them down. I cut around the shape of the wires. more bacon bond and before the second layer of clay, and after it's added on there, I flip it and I cut out the pattern on the other side. I think this open area looks stupid, so later I go back in and I add some clay to it to create another closed window. Using various tools, I refine the shape and the texture until I get something that I'm pleased with. I also carve out a recess to create another fake window. Now all the wings are sculpted and baked. I'm doing resin work next, so I put on my respirator. I mix up some UV resin and alcohol ink, and I pour it into this window here. The wing is taped down with masking tape onto a Ziploc bag. This method worked fairly well the first time that I made the wings, but it was just the wire and the resin. I use a lighter to get all of the surface bubbles off, and I try and get the stuff that's leaking out the bottom. And I use my ghetto little UV lamp here. Don't judge me, I had to cut it apart to make it work for art because I can't always fit my art in there, and it's for fingers, and that's why I have to use tools to push that button. When I remove it, I see that the back is partially cured, and so I'm taking off extra pieces that I don't want stuck, and then I'm going to cure it again. And it's alright. The back is a little bit messed up. The front looks kind of cool. I gave it a bit of a wiggle test to see if it would stay in the window, and it did. And for the second one that I try, I hot glue it to the Ziploc bag, and I'm hoping that I'll get a cleaner seal so that the back of the wing will look better. Okay, so here I mess up, and I'm like, oh, it'll be easier to get off of the Ziploc bag if I cure it first. Wrong, it just cured to the Ziploc bag, so I spent a while trying to rip this off, and it just had a bunch of plastic in it. I did try and look at, yeah, it's alright. So I tried again. Yeah, with this method, I am cutting out little pieces of plastic to put in the windows, and so I can seal them really good, like individually. And so I'm taking a recycled piece of plastic and cutting it out in the shape of the windows and taping it to the back. So this method seemed to be my most successful one, and I cleaned back off with a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol before adding another thin layer to get the gloss back on the back and curing the back of it as well. I wasn't satisfied with the curing after the first one, so I did it twice. It ended up pretty beautiful, and so now I'm gonna paint the clay. I start with this blue that is the same color as the fairy because, well, I want it to match the fairy. And these are also intended to be color windows, so this is what I choose to do, and the rest gets painted black. When this black dries, it's a satin and the blue is matte, and I kind of didn't like that, so I do go back and try and paint it with a color shift glaze, but end up not liking it and painting the blue back because it shows every flaw in the, yeah, it's all lumpy. So here she is, all done in her beautiful glory, and I'm really pleased. I think she turned out beautiful. I love that everything is like bendy and usable and practical. You know, her ears were already made out of cosclay, and everything was nice and soft, but now I'm not worried about the wire popping off of resin and stuff because the clay is holding it in place, and this is a lot better. I was worried about the resin popping out of these little clay windows, but they're actually in there really well, and I'm really pleased with how this project turned out.